get together. That takes place the fourth Tuesday of every month. So we're hoping that more people, just spreading awareness, we'll be able to start coming out to more of our events as well. Just so everybody is aware, the next one will take place at the Sugar Bowl Bar and Grill on Tuesday, September 23rd from 5 to 7 p.m. So if anybody's interested in talking more about brain drinks, I'll be sitting in the back over there. We do have a sign-in sheet, so if anybody wasn't able to register online, we do have a sign-in sheet just to kind of track the numbers. And with that, I'll pass it over.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out. My name is Marshall Clubo. I work for the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, and this is going to be problematic. Let's see. Alrighty, so GLREA, Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, is a 30-year-old nonprofit in the state of Michigan. We've been doing advocacy, education, the expansion, implementation of renewable energy. GLREA, I found out about it about a decade ago. I had a fellowship my senior year of college investigating 100% renewable energy transition. And at the bottom of every rabbit hole I found myself was a GLREA board member, a staff member, and it's really been a great group. I was a board member myself for 4 years and been on staff for the last year and a half or so. So definitely glrea.org. Check us out and get involved. We're a member-based organization. So individual members, $30 a year is what runs us. We're also business members and student members. So if you're something to consider. I like to share our Michigan Solar Communities Guidebook. So at glra.org, you can download a digital version. This is a 70, 80-page document that took 4 years to make. I like to say it has everything under the sun. Any questions you have about solar, renewable energy in Michigan, you'll be able to find it there. And if you do want a hard copy, I can mail those to you. My card's in the back on the table there, as well as some GLREA membership information. This is a QR code to download the guidebook, and all these slides will be available to you after the event, so don't feel like you gotta take a photo of this. We'll get those out to you. And as was mentioned, if you didn't sign up online, go ahead and sign that sign-in sheet so we got your contact information. So Solarize Michigan, this is a program that I run statewide. Kalamazoo, we did our first event last October, November. Really been doing well, but we've been taking off. The program started in Ann Arbor, Michigan in 2022. And I was just actually at a site visit there yesterday. And they've done over 6 or 7 megawatts of energy, over 700 homes in Ann Arbor alone have done this program. We're really doing well in Grand Rapids, Lansing. We actually have our first UP event early September, so excited about that. But in the last 2 Grand Rapids events, I think we had 27 installs. The one before that might have been 17, both over 100 kilowatts. So really, the program is starting to take off statewide. It's pretty exciting. But what is Solarize? That's why we're here. What it really is at the core is a neighbor-to-neighbor, peer-to-peer organizing. It's all about bringing family, bringing friends, bringing neighbors together to learn about solar energy. There's no guarantees in life, except our electricity bills are going to keep rising. So now's the time to get those solar on your home, establish that resiliency, establish that independence. If you get a battery, you're protected from power outages. And we're going to talk about it more, but with the upcoming tax credits for home residential going away at the end of 2025 under the big beautiful bill, now really is the last time. Thankful for Shrinergy being available to work these installs in at the last minute. I talked about 10 different solar contractors trying to find someone for this event that can do installs in 2025, and no one was available. So originally this event, we had partnered with Helios, which is a great local company, but they were only available in 2026. So we really wanted to offer people the opportunity to get a 2025 install, and thankful Shrinergy was able to work it in. So definitely now's the time. I've been in the industry for about a decade, and the technology's at a point where it's going to keep getting better. It's going to keep getting more efficient, but it's really kind of reached that plateau of performance, price, and availability. It's hard to say what tariffs are going to do to the availability of some of these parts. going forward. So really, with all the equations, all the factors, climate change, now is the time to invest in your home solar. So now we're going to talk a little bit about solar panels in the historic district from a Kalamazoo angle. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. My name is Luis Pena. I'm the Historic Preservation Coordinator with the City of Kalamazoo, and I just wanted to talk to everyone about solar panels in historic districts because I think this topic is one that a lot of people make this immediate assumption, like, oh, you can't put you can't put panels on historic homes, right? They're not inherently historic, and I don't think anything could be further from the truth, especially here in Kalamazoo. So. A big thing that people don't think about with historic preservation, I think, is something that really got started in the 70s, and it is the sustainability angle with historic preservation. This quote saying that the greenest building is one that already exists, I think is super true, and that's from a former president of the American Institute for Architects. But trying to save the stuff that we have there keeps things from going into landfills, make sure that housing is available and we don't have kind of gaps when houses are torn down and we're waiting for new ones to get built, right? This image is kind of small, but these are two really interesting examples of solar panels that went on because the guys that own these houses are brothers. So one set of panels went on, and then it seems like they told the other brother, and they're like, "Oh, I want to put panels on too." So they put some panels on, and then it expanded twice. But looking at this, one of the biggest concerns that we have when we look at historic preservation is, are these panels going to detract from the character of these houses at all? And these pictures were really interesting, I thought, because depending on the angle, you don't even see the panels at all, especially on the greenhouse. You have to be coming up the street, and park is a one-way right now where these houses are. And they are really a low-key addition to the property, in my opinion, very low profile. Another thing that I think is really important to consider is that I don't think that anyone could show me a house in the city of Kalamazoo that still has the original roof on it. I've seen one roof in the city that I was convinced was original, but it was underneath like 5 layers of other shingles. It was actually wood shakes were still there. And that was really neat to see, but we're not taking anything away from these houses when we put on the panels. Currently, and this is small, so I'll give you guys some summarization here, but currently what you have to do to put panels onto the houses is go to what's called the Historic District Commission. So that's a monthly meeting with volunteers, and they'll review the application of them. I've never turned one down before. Work really closely with applicants when they're coming in. And people are always really respectful of these panels when they put them on, and they're really respecting the character of the property, right? So a lot of this, you can find a lot of horror stories when it comes to the preservation and panels, and they have some really interesting pictures of people putting on like 20-foot additions onto the top of the house to put panels on, and that's kind of a no-no. But when we see panels put on like we did in the last two images, it really works very easily. All preservation in local historic districts in the state of Michigan use these guidelines, which are called the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. Kalamazoo is really unique too because we have like 2,300 properties that are located in local historic districts. So it's close to 10% of the city is located in a local historic district, which means that there are rules that need to be followed when you make exterior changes. To put it in perspective, that's more buildings per capita would be for people, but per building than Grand Rapids has. So we have a lot of properties that are protected. And everyone uses these standards, right? And I pulled out the 2 applicable ones that we're looking at. And I think that just when we understand the gist of these, we can understand that putting the panels onto buildings really does fit. So the one on the left is number 9, and it says that when you make a change to a property, it should not take away from things that characterize the property. So like I just said, the roof is not usually a character defining feature. It's not original to the property. So we already hit that one on the head, right? It also says that the new work shall be differentiated from the old, but still be compatible, which is a little bit wishy-washy. But it gives us a lot of latitude to say solar panels were not around back in the day, so that's immediately distinguishable from the historic character, right? And we can make them blend if we respect the pitch of them, if we try to make them parallel to the roof. All these things really lend itself to putting on the panels. Number 10, which is this one right here, says that new additions should be put on in a way that if you remove them in the future, it would not compromise the property. And again, none of these roofs are historic. A lot of the solar panels that I've seen are minimally invasive. You're going to make some holes in the roof, but people know what they're doing when they're installing them, so it's not going to hurt the property either. So it really is more compatible than people think. There's, some of the folks here in the crowd have put on some solar panels on their historic homes, something that I always like to see because it does continue to get contemporary efficient use of these houses and the housing stock that we have in the city of Kalamazoo, and kind of maximizing that housing stock. I'll be around the rest of the evening if folks do want to talk to me, and I can trade contact info if you have any questions about it, but thanks so much for having me out this evening.
Before we keep the Brandon here, I did forget to include one slide that I want to show you everyone, just because it really is a great representation of where we're at in history. Wants to load for us. All right, there we go. So this right here is the energy mix of Michigan. I like to show this slide, and thanks to Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory for providing this for us. The year is 2021. That's just because that's last year they started creating these graphics. You can see here, this yellow line is where we're at on solar. We have a long ways to go. As the energy transition occurs, we need to increase our solar, our hydro, our wind, our geothermal. All these fossil fuel burning energies, natural gas, coal, petroleum, they have a lot of rejected energy. So all these gray bars over here is rejected heat from those fossil fuel burning. So you can see this, I feel like it really just shows the scale of the energy transition that we're underway. So one of the best things we can do is start pulling carbon off the grid at all costs, whether it's residential, whether it's business, commercial, place of worship, our schools, our local units of government. It's going to take everything we have to make this energy transition. So nuclear's coming back online in Michigan, but we need to keep expanding our solar and pairing with farms and smart ways. Agrovoltaics is a great practice where you can put solar and cows, sheep, other livestock animals can live happily underneath the panels from shade. A lot of shady crops still grow well with solar. So this is all part of the energy transition that we face. Right, and thank you, Brandon. As well, for people just walking in, we got bathrooms over here. We got some food here, some paper supplies in the back. Thanks for coming out.
Hey everyone, yeah, I'm Brandon. I work with Synergy. We're a solar development company based in Novi, and excited to work with GLREA. And I've been working in solar for, I guess, professionally since 2012. I started working with Zero Base Energy in Ferndale, Michigan, which was a really cool start. That was like 2012. They were focused on more like military applications for solar and battery systems. So I was a project manager for a program to build solar battery systems in 2-man and 4-man lift configurations and different containers and trailer-based systems that could be deployed into forward operating bases and paired with tactical quiet generators. So a lot of the goal of our company was to get the program of record with different branches of the military. I'm not from a military background, and was more of a anti-war activist during the Iraq War in college, and seeing connections between climate change and the deployment of resources to go secure oil in Iraq when I was in college in 2005. So like Hurricane Katrina hit while we're, from my perspective, coming more politically aware, deployed into Iraq. I didn't like that. I thought that was like ridiculous. And then at the same time, I'm from Detroit area, and just in my feeble brain, these factories are closing down. Why can't we build solar panels and stop going to war to fight for oil and put people back to work in Detroit and these, I don't know, that's just what I thought, but. So that really sparked a lot of activism for me, at first, getting into climate change campaigns, struggling to get into this industry because, it didn't really exist, at any level in 2005 besides, going to GLREA's state conferences and seeing a couple mom and pop solar outfits. And I don't think a lot of them are around at this point. So it was a long process, you know, fighting for policy, trying to make the economic conditions better. I think in 2008, we had a renewable portfolio standard established finally in Michigan. And it was like incremental. And some of the first programs were created. Like, we're looking to see who wants to be in the current program, which is the distributed generation program. Generally, most people in this area will be with Consumers Energy. So, you know, the overall goal of this is to achieve economy of scale and have many people sign up in the same area so that we can deploy our installation team and purchasing power and things like that, like most efficiently, to try to give discounts to the community. So yeah, like through originally working with that company, I actually got into more like rural electrification, and we started applying the technology, which if anyone is like inverter nerds here, like Outback Power Systems or Victron Systems, we were working a lot with that, and then we started scaling up into what would be considered more like microgrid class stuff. And I had an opportunity to work on we won a bid. This is at Zero Base in 2012. I'm trying to connect all this. We'll probably keep it together. Okay. So we won a bid to build this company, a microgrid in Haiti, in a village that was like 6 hours out of Port-au-Prince, that had no power system or infrastructure. And we won that bid, and I raised my hand and got the project manager position for that project, and saw like the beginnings of what I thought would be really cool. Like, we designed everything and built these containerized power electronic, you know, things, and built it all in our like manufacturing facility, something, you know, glorified warehouse we had, and built a battery container, you know, designed how to connect these. So our job was to build the power system and connect to a whole power pole system was being built by a company from the Dominican Republic. And then there was a nonprofit organization called Earthspark International that was Washington, D.C. based, that was behind all this, trying to organize the beginnings of how to do that whole leapfrog thing we talk about in these areas where we can go from no power infrastructure straight to renewable. So that was like, you know, this is all really inspiring stuff for me to be, you know, involved in that. And I've tried to sort of like keep that vibe throughout my career as I've come back into Michigan. But so, you know, just to kind of close out, I mean, that was 2012. And that company, or the group that organized it, and like where some of the funds came from, was actually from USAID, was a backer of this project. But they weren't alone. There was many countries, philanthropic arms, that were contributing to this. So like for the United States to be able to participate in a global effort to bring this microgrid and demonstrate something in Haiti, you know, that's more what I think some of these institutions are for. I don't know why I'm bringing it politics. It's hard not to. The tax rate getting canceled, you know that, right? That's like one of the big issues here today, is that the tax credit's getting canceled at the end of the year. So it all like it's all like a whirlwind right now. My activist side really wants to connect and get as many people done by the end of the year to take advantage of the tax credit. So politics on this stuff really matter. Like from my perspective, like coming up, like basically through all this, it's shocking to have this regression after we have fought so hard. And it's like across the board regression. So like we'll be okay. Like, yeah, we're resilient. Like it's a sucker punch though, I would say. It's kind of like, this isn't, when someone just hits you out of nowhere with a bunch of crazy stuff, and to me that's a sucker punch. Like there was no way for us to know that it would be this aggressive, like going after the residential solar tax credit, which was in place, it's cemented to 2035. We have to respond to this in ways that it's unprecedented. So I don't even know what the response is yet, but we'll figure it out eventually. I'm confident on that. So I worked with Zero Base. The Haiti project was kind of like my last big project with them, but I saw some of the progressions of the technology and like how this stuff develops. And, on the R&D side, there was a lot of solar battery development back in 2012, like with the military and pushing some of the companies that were already there and investing in this stuff. And now you see really cool solar battery home-based power electronics and wall-mounted equipment, and the evolution is very sleek. And we can get really beautiful systems and installed with like a Franklin Watt Hour is a great brand, or Tesla Powerwall, similar, how they approached, or the Enphase ecosystem with their microinverter. A lot of these products are based on a system controller when you go more advanced. So there's like the really simple thing is just a grid-tied solar array. Most of the companies that are making this tech now have ecosystems of products that are sort of hinting towards like full home automation type systems. None of them really have the full solution like that yet, but you get an app, you see your power flow, you see how much you're taking from the utility, you see how much the solar panels are producing, you see how much the home is self-consuming of the solar, all right there, which is important when you're on distributed generation to have that visibility, because one of the regressions in policy that we had was that net metering was taken away and replaced with distributed generation. So when you export power back to the utility, and I've seen a lot of frustration in consumers' territory in particular about how they have implemented distributed generation. So the battery buffers you from that, having this visibility into your bidirectional flow when you have a solar array that you invested in at your home, and what's available for you to track this. It's all great. It's all really cool. And sans having like a car where you spend 30 grand on this car and you get to drive it around. You spend 30 grand on the solar array and you get an app, to see what it's doing. Basically the simple stuff is, and like how the program is been developed, is the discount is really on the grid tied solar aspect of the projects, because us as the installation companies, we're really not seeing the economy of scale on the battery systems, because the battery systems and the transfer switches are so custom to your home. And they're like, so if we do whole home backup and we position our equipment as the first point of disconnect in your home, meaning that the whole home will get backed up, then we have to rework your grounding and neutrals and separate most likely your main, a couple of things in your main service panel. connect the water meter to the, so there's a lot of complexity built into the battery systems that it's really hard to just scale a discount on. And I also think with operationally, once you're, kind of deploying your roof team over and over again, they kind of get in a rhythm. You're sending them to the same community every time and the same area. So there's real efficiency on that. So I have slides too. But yeah, I can throw them off. But I want to introduce myself, why I'm out here. Like when you were saying it's the end of the year, and I think a lot of solar companies are busy, but we are wanting to make a push ourselves. And I know, like for me, some projects I've worked on out here, I was a lead on the Aldi store. I forget which Aldi store, but Aldi's got solar in town. I did Plainwell's, like the DNRs, like they take deer over there and just clean them up right there. There's a ground mount solar array there. I was involved in that project. I think Allegan, they have a small system at their DNR. Basically did a bunch of projects with DNR, did a bunch of projects with Aldi. I've actually worked with 3 people that worked or still work here and done their projects in town. But yeah, we are from Novi. We have our own crew, and we would be sending that crew from Novi to come out here, just so everyone's clear on that. And I don't see any problem with that personally, but yeah. So I think we just have like pictures of our jobs. Yeah. So we've been around since 2010. Prasad, he was a close friend of mine. He founded the company. Decently known, he gets out in the solar industry. I don't know if anyone's in the solar industry, but he's pretty well known guy, active. Like we do a lot of work to, make sure we're rooted in our communities that we're working in. He owns the company outright. We do a lot of commercial solar systems. That's a big focus of our company. We develop power purchase agreements, finance systems, and we find hosts to host the solar arrays, which is not really a model in residential. It's a commercial model in Michigan, at least. And I prefer to do projects where people own them. Like I think that's really where the revolution is, personally, is in distributed power. But yeah, we do EV charging stations, generators, general electrical contracting. We do most solar companies have some people that are well versed in like Aurora software. So a lot of times when you get quotes from solar companies, you'll see this like 3D image and 2D images. That's all coming from Aurora software. So we'll kind of do like the conceptual design. If you end up working with us, like if we get into a point where we need to get some specifics, like we might need to deploy out, we might have to check like specific roof measurements. If you're serious, we're going to kind of like, we'll take the site visit serious too. Like if you think you're going to do it and you want your rafters measured, we agree with that too. We'll get up in the attic and we'll measure that. We'll come, take measurements of the roof, and if you got a pipe up there and we need to lock in the conceptual design, we're willing to do that. But if you're just like, can you just do 100 things and I'm not that serious about it, then we're going to probably respond with, we want to do it, but we have other people that are also prioritizing us. So, but yeah, if you're serious, it goes really smooth. Oftentimes we'll start with trying to have a remote kind of meeting first. I can stay on my desktop and I can actually open the design software and we might be able to have a conversation. If that's like not what you're looking for, sometimes people don't want to spend that much time on the phone too, and you just want to know what it is. I get that too. If you want to spend time, we'll make the time. If you want to get out and design with me, if you have your own ideas, totally into it. We very much heavily prioritize Enphase microinverters in their product line, and Franklin watt hours battery system and controller. Those are the two main products. You'll see a lot of companies offering those because they've emerged right now as just really solid products. Enphase's microinverters have very low failure rates right now in their current manufacturing run. Franklin has a 15 kilowatt hour battery as its base, but it can discharge continuously 10 kilowatts. So that's, in my opinion, that's about what, 50 something amps. So it's pretty much enough to do whole home backup off one battery. One of the great things about it is it has a 185 lock rotor amp rating, which is where you would see most of the problems with a solar battery hybrid system or backup system, is that the battery can't discharge enough to start up your compressor on your air conditioner. But 185 lock rotor amps is really high. So one Franklin watt hour battery, it's a premium battery, so that one battery is expensive, but it can, be designed for a whole home backup. Where that's a big deal to me. Like when people are putting in all this money, and just like, if I'm like, I'll back up 4 circuits on a critical load panel versus I'll back up your whole home, and like, you don't got to worry about anything. The other cool thing about Franklin is it can have a generator tied in, and the generator can be on auto start. And if your battery voltage, like if you were in like a week-long or 2-week-long outage, ice storm, like what happens out here, and you're just covered, solar panels are covered, everything, then the generator can be auto started, or you can take a cheap manual generator and you can also plug that in. You do have to have the generator kit from Franklin, but that's one of the ways they excel. And then like if your car has vehicle to load already, that can go into the generator port. So vehicle to load is not vehicle to grid, but like the Cybertruck and the Lightning, they have these 240 outputs that can go into the Franklin system. I'm very technical, but it will lock out it will like kind of lock out you can't have your Franklin battery in solar panels and the EV running at the same time. But it will recharge that battery. So you could discharge your whatever Ford Lightning into your home in a long-term outage and run your house and recharge the Franklin battery. And then once you are recharged, you can unplug it and go back to your solar battery system. So like some of the use cases, and I've seen it out here where like I think 2023, there was huge ice storms, and then like vast swaths of the grid were knocked out. But the sun came back out about, this is like February, like 2-3 days into this. Very long extended outages. So it's not impossible for these things to happen. I have seen the utilities reacting a lot to try to fix this problem after that. Like that was a really bad winter to like shore up, these outages. But I know people that were out like a week that week, and that was like 2 years ago. So we have these like polar vortex situations, which is probably climate related, and how do you like that? That's the worst case scenario. Like if you're looking at what's the system going to do on January 5th in a polar vortex, and the sun's blocked out and it's negative 10 degrees out, and it was just an ice storm. What's the system going to do? We do financing through Michigan Saves. We don't really offer like the solar loans, like dividend finance or some of those like 25-year loan. Generally those have a really high dealer fee.
Just 1 second. Michigan Saves, one of the reasons we're able to partner with Strategy and do this event is Michigan Saves is the nation's first green bank. So we're really lucky as a state to have them. They're a very reputable institution. They partner with local credit unions to give you the best interest rate you can get. If you need a new roof, you can also lump that loan together. So you can do your solar and your roof loan at the same time. And they do things like wells, furnaces, great contract finder too. If you need someone, a contractor, you plug in what the output is, where you live, and they'll kick out all the local approved contractors. It's like a 2 or 3 year process to become a Michigan Saves contractor. So it is a big deal that we have them. Great company, definitely a good option for you. And another great thing about them is you can pay off your loan without any payment, increased payment. So if you have an influx of money, pay that loan down, they'll just save you in the long run. So definitely a good option to go with if you're in a pinch right now.
Yeah, I think the cheapest money is going to be like a home equity loan or something like that you self-finance. But I think these are usually like 599 or 699 15-year loans. So can do it. It's probably cheaper for you to get your own money, but okay. But yeah, it is an enabling loan. We've done a lot of Michigan Saves loans. Like, there's a lot of problems with solar financing. The last couple of years, basically, there was a bunch of companies that were taking advantage of these like financing options. So it can be, with the right company, it can be a very good process and a lot of transparency. And we're not really involved in the Michigan Saves process as the contractor. We have to be authorized, but we present to you the project, and we can work with you, and sometimes we'll handhold the loan process and make sure that you feel comfortable and you get through it. But yeah, it's a financing option, and you're taking our quote, you're going to them and saying, I want a loan to do this energy project, and we're there as much as needed. Obviously, we want the project, so if we're selling you on the project, we might get very involved if you are saying I'm confused, and we'll get real involved with you, make sure you get it done. So yeah, the big thing we're here today, and I think it's a motivating factor, is that the tax credit is expiring at the end of the year. It's also rushed and so unthought through. It's just like so ridiculous, but like that's what's happening. Like from what I understand, it needs to be operational. And I was researching before I came here today. The language is like the expense needs to be made this year. Yeah, I think our take on it would be that we'll do everything we can to see it all the way through the interconnection process. So the faster that we're applying for that interconnection, I would imagine that would be the thing that would take the longest, would be making sure that it had approval through Consumers Energy for the project, which can be, they have their regulated time frame for responding to the application and meeting their check marks. And I don't have anything against Consumers Energy really, but I do feel that their interconnection process has been more like annoying than DTE's, I would say. And more when there's like a correction needed, they're kicking you way back in the queue over. So, it's just like what I'm saying is, it'd be good to get this interconnection done, if we're going to do it this year, as quickly as possible, so that we get the hard part, which is just consumers to approve it, out of the way. Yes.
Is 4 months holistic from centralization, keeping this idea around actually having
I think right now, yeah, I mean, we're still in the range. It's okay. I'd say that we need that accuracy, and things like that, like might be more just oversight to be making sure that interconnections are right and things like that. Not that we're not doing that. But yeah, I think we've got to get, it's definitely intentionally that we're doing this today and trying to make sure we're flagging this. And this is probably the last batch of people that, like people that are thinking about doing it now is probably at the end of who will be able to get in. Yeah.
Have to be established by December or?
Well, she is asking for more clarification on eligibility for the tax credit, what state the project needs to be in. And I was referencing an article from Energy Sage, which Energy Sage is a online marketplace where different installers are listed, and you can go post your project up and get a bunch of different quotes, but they also have a blog, and I don't know, probably a good source. But specifically the language was, I had it pulled up. So the new law states that systems must have expenditures made by December 31st, 2025, which is different from the previous placed in service language, quote unquote, placed in service. So it now says expenditures made instead of placed in service. Energy Sage says a tax attorney Energy Sage spoke with believes that at minimum your system needs to be installed by the deadline, while interconnection and full payment are likely not necessary. Others could interpret the language differently. The safest approach is to have your system up and running by December 31st, 2025. So yeah, I would say like potentially there's intentional ambiguity with what's happening to confuse. So, trying to have invoices, interconnection, permits, like your app will have a timestamp when the system is activated, when you get your, our team activates the controller or the inverter or whatever the device is that you end up going with that is the hub of the communication of the system. It's going to have a timestamp when that gets activated. So there's a bunch of different things to make sure it's all foolproof. So yeah, I'm trying to just give my best. I've been very aggressive getting as many solar systems installed as much as possible, like the last 10 years. So just another push, let's get it done. Like if you're serious about it, like if that's like really important, I think that we chatted briefly about not just what, Marshall was asking what we would do or other vendors or, we don't know what we're going to do yet. Like, this is going to have to, we're going to have to change our pricing. There was discussion of like, what happens if you sign up, you don't get done at the end of the year and we made that commitment. Would, we be willing to just make sure you get this no matter what if you sign up as part of that program? I think that would be difficult for us. Maybe there could be some discount, but I think like let's see who here wants to get their system done this year, and I think we can make it happen. You're doing up, yeah.
Also heard from past clients who've actually gotten credit, like this actually works. I've heard also various things about the credit tax.
Yeah.
It works. Yeah, people get checks, whether nonprofit, residential, business. It can take up to 6 months to get that tax credit, and with the attacks on the IRS, they got to be slower. Just naturally, there's less people there, but it does work. And there are free resources. The state of Michigan has an elective pay, direct pay resource, as well as Lawyers for Good Governance. I can help walk through any tax credit issues you might have. Those are 2 good resources. And we'll send this information out in an email tomorrow with those 2 resources for you.
I've had to provide supporting documentation. People have been audited. And one interesting thing last year was them asking for certifications for some of the products that that they were eligible for the tax credit, which I had never heard that before. But it was very real. And two of my clients in Ann Arbor needed to come up with this documentation. So I went through that, but I've been through enough where I've seen most of it. You know, basically it's a claim, you know, it's on the energy rebate form. Like I think it's form 52B or something. So you're just claiming it. Everything else is documentation to back your claim, you know, so yeah.
The other thing to remember is it's tax credit. So it's not like you're $6,000, you don't get $6,000. $6,000
Income tax credit,
Right,
yes.
deduction. So you're in 24% tax credit. Basically get a quarter of that off to what you have to pay.
I don't have the tax brackets memorized, but I'm probably in. Yes.
You have a source for components that are going to be able to slide under the tariffs?
Well, I know we're so. I don't know if we have, like we have a warehouse of Philadelphia brand 440 watt modules right now. So we were gonna like base most of our quotes on those, which have a 25-year manufacturer's warranty and the 30-year power production warranty. They're black on black modules. That was going to be the main module, and then you know, basically like we're committing to our price, and the tariffs will not impact that. Okay, these are just projects we've done. Okay, so get our price. Okay. We didn't actually list our price on here. Let me actually get that out.
Yeah, so while he's pulling that up, the way the Solarize discount works is that with 3 people, were to sign up today, it would be a 5% discount. If 7 homes sign, that's 10%, and then if 10 homes sign, that's 15% off. So you'll get your quote within the next few weeks. There's a timeline that's on the next slide that lays that out. And then at the end of the road, we'll keep you updated with how many people sign, so you know what that discount looks like. And as Brandon was saying, it's all about keeping projects local. So they don't have to send their crew to Grand Rapids today, Muskegon tomorrow, Detroit the next day. They're just going to Kalamazoo. So they're able to knock them out in a consistent manner, as well as pulling permits. That's a big part of the program is when you're applying for the work from the contractor end, if it's all in the same city, you're in the queue, you're in the line, you're dealing with the local unit of government. And so that's how Solarize is able to get that bulk buy purchase discount.
Yeah, and I think you'd be shocked at how like expensive the sales process in itself is. So obviously you all coming and putting the effort in to bring everyone together, that's a big part of the discount too, is just being able to meet with you all. It's an incredible opportunity for any solar company to be able to meet with a community like this. So yeah.
I have a question on that. Is it based, does it live in the state of Kalamazoo or the county or is it township?
Generally, what we've done is a 30-mile radius of the meet place. So people that are on the fringe, definitely, you know, you're still eligible. And if people aren't here today, they are still eligible. That's part of the idea, is that you guys are all now solar ambassadors. So you all have friends, you all have neighbors, you all have family. Go tell them, we'll share the slides. I'm recording this meeting. So that'll all be available to you tomorrow. So yeah, definitely make sure to sign up on a paper sheet going around or golrea.org. The event should still be active, but sometimes it takes it down the day of the event. So definitely we'll get in touch with all those opportunities.
Okay, I wanted to go over price per watt too in a minute, and so for this, but yeah.
If we end up pooling with other neighbors, do we know how that affects private tax credits? Is that, aren't the tax credits are
Yeah, the tax credit will be individual. So it's your individual income. When you file your taxes in 2026, you can report your solar system as an individual. You won't have anything to do with the neighbors.
Okay, we don't.
Yeah, every solar array, we're pitching you on attaching it to your meter. So not like a community solar array, but you getting your own individual array and your neighbor getting their own individual array and passing on savings because you're both doing it at the same time.
That's not great. I'm wondering, so it says 10 plus homes, is there a, where you're gonna discount more than 15%, like if we get 100?
No, yeah, we cap it at 15.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's no joy in getting a huge.
I mean, the joy is that.
If that's. If you give me 100 people by the end of the year, I like the way you think. It's good. Maybe. I think that wasn't on our.
Wasn't that your radar?
No. No.
Yes, you are very much.
Okay. Well, and one thing on this is, I did a lot of the early programs in Ann Arbor. The way when I'm looking at it, I'm kind of mentally here at the 15% where I'm assuming, I kind of have to plan that the discount's going to hit because it's a way, it works, but like I have to also plan for that, we're going to be here. So mentally, because you don't want to be just it's a big difference, like making sure the projects are successful. But so just to go over this, we have I'll have to just like confirm a couple things after today, but because I have our standard pricing. So our 5% discount with Enphase is $333 a watt. 10% is $315 a watt. 15% is $2.98 a watt. So that's Enphase IQ8. I guess like IQ8M or IQ8A microinverters, which would be their higher powered ones. We are willing to do Tesla string inverters with rapid shutdown devices that don't have microinverters, so you don't have panel level optimization, which I don't know how much people know at this point, but the Enphase microinverters, you get a panel level map. You get this with like SolarEdge and Enphase really, changed the industry with DC optimizers and microinverters. So fortunately, SolarEdge's inverters just having some issues these days. But so with the Tesla system, you don't get an app showing what your panels are doing. With the Enphase system, you get a map of what they're doing. Like if you have like a pure south-facing roof with no obstructions, the Tesla system might actually outperform the Enphase system because the solar is DC coupled, be a higher voltage, and you would get, depending on a couple of things, you'd be getting a little bit more power if it's just a south-facing roof with no obstructions. When you have the microinverters, they really shine in. You got east-facing roof, you got a west-facing roof, you got a south-facing roof. They all have different levels of obstructions or issues, and Enphase is going to make sure that every single panel is maximizing what it can do at that time. So it really outperforms string inverters, and string inverters have become less and less popular, which was what Tesla's is, but just want to give you that lower cost option. So once again, the lowest cost system would be a solar array at 276 a watt with Tesla. As of right now, we got to check these numbers, and then 298 a watt with our recommended inverter, which is Enphase. I feel like I'm being really slow. Thank you for bearing with me. It's crazy once you have a microphone in your hands. Okay, so let's get through this. Breakdown, site assessment, and so like site assessment design, that's kind of happening, you know. I might jump on the phone, I might get on the design software, you know, check out your roof, do some modeling before we talk. If I got your address, I got your bill. I might even design the whole thing and have it ready to present to you. But I like to get feedback from you. I like to see, like, do you want battery backup? Do you want these other things? Like, if you want battery backup, do you want whole home, or is there like a specific thing you want to do? You know, what are you trying to do? I feel like a lot of people end up with one Franklin battery. Is when, you know, they're pretty expensive, so pretty rare for people to go for, you know, maybe two, but three, it starts to get like pretty rare. So we want to get like to the point where you understand what's going on, you understand what we're pitching, you understand where the panels are going to go. We want to have, like, through this process, understand your electrical situation, where the main service panel is, where the meter is. You know, we're trying to get a disconnecting means for the most part for the inverter within 5 feet of consumer's meter. Need to get all that stuff sorted out. For you, it's mainly, you know, what's it going to do to my utility bill? You know, that's what we're, you know, installation. So we need our interconnection ideally approved. We might make some, you know, case by case, you know, we might start installations without the interconnection approved if we know it's going to get approved. But that's a conversation that we need to have with you all. But we certainly have your building and electric permit with whatever jurisdiction you're in, which we're going to have a plan set. So we all decide on the project, then we go through what we call engineering. You know, you get a standard like 15 to 20 page engineering document that has all the structural and electrical calculations that we submit for your building permit and your electric permit. Do the install. Most of the time, 2 to 3 day, you know, 1 to 3 day projects. A 8-panel grid tied system should be a 1 day job. A 8-panel grid tied system with battery backup would be a 1 to 2 day job. I know we're like today, I think we're doing a 13-panel project in Dexter with 2 Franklin batteries, but like the batteries are like on the other side of the home, and he's being pretty you know, specific with his electric equipment wall. So we have 3 days for that install. Like, you know, it's around that. So once again, if 10 people sign up and we have, you know, 1 to 3 days of installs, this is kind of giving an idea of how this is going to go. Commissioning happens obviously at the end. There's our commissioning where we activate your system, we activate your app, we turn on your inverter, we make sure everything is working and running. If you have a backup system, we're going to simulate a power outage. We're going to make sure it transfers. We're going to make sure it transfers back over. Then we're going to go over the app with you. We're going to hand the system off to you. Then we're going to wait for building electric inspection. Got to pass the electric inspection and then upload proof of that to Consumers Energy. They review the documentation at that point. Once they sign off on all your documentation, Consumers doesn't really do site visits. I guess they can actually reprogram these meters remotely. You know, DTE territory, they send a technician out to reprogram the meter, but you'll get notification, you know, that either they come out and test your AC disconnect. Actually, I don't even think Consumers does that because they make us do that and then give them a report. So you're going to wait for them to approve it and then it can turn on. You know, why you don't want to have it be on before they approve it? Because if you export power, you'll get charged for it. Because the meter's just one direction at that point. They got to reprogram it so it shows power going back to them. It just sees energy and charges you. You could technically put the system into self-consumption mode. I like to do that as smarty pants, you know, but like sometimes it really confuses people. But you know, essentially there's sensors where we can say, don't go back to the grid.
Residential, it's small, problem.
Well, most of the problems would be installer error with like submitting the documentation, I would say. At the end, they really shouldn't have an issue. Like it would be more at the beginning where they're questioning your line diagram and then kicking you back to the start, but like they're approving your line diagram and they're approving your site plan. So as long as we don't radically change your site plan and electric diagram and install something else, then if everything is matching, then it should be approved. I think where you see a lot of frustration is in administration teams and solar getting the documentation submitted incorrectly, usually. So like, for example, if like consumers will allow you to have your solar AC disconnect located away from the meter, but you need to have a placard that is describing where that is. You know, little things like that. You need to have proof of where the placard is. And if you don't have that, like why it gets so frustrating for people is because they push you back in the queue. You might have some minor error, but you go back 15 days or they kick you all the way back and then they put everybody else. I don't know why they do that. I guess it's just some management issue. That's the problem is you get a small thing wrong and you get kicked back in the queue. Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay. These are all just different displays of, you know, what we just went over. Yeah, we generally like our payment structure, and it might have to get modified just to make sure everything gets done. But if it's a cash contract, I think we ask for 30% down. We try to get the approvals, and then we want another payment for material procurement. This is just our company, how we do it. So we want another payment for material procurement. And then the material procurement gets started when we want another payment, and then when we're done, we want another payment for cash contracts. So probably getting too much into the weeds. So yeah, I'm at Brandon. You know, a lot of people struggle with this. It's Srinergy, SRINERGY. And I'm just Brandon, BRANDON at Srinergy.com. This my cell phone number. I think we're gonna be directly following up though, right?
Yep,
To
yep.
reach
I'll
out.
send an email out tomorrow with a recording, the slides. In Brandon's email, his phone number will be there. You can feel free to reach out to us if there's any questions. Yeah, we'll take it from there. You guys probably really just need electricity bill. Yeah, and we'll still be here if there's more questions right now. I'm happy to answer those. We'll be around for a little while, so.